Beloved, mighty I am presence, let thy light descend upon us. Infill us with thy living presence, the sacred heart of Jesus, magnanimous heart of Vanilla. Beloved Morya, our Guru, beloved Kuthumi, Lord Gautama, saints from far-off worlds, saints who walk the earth. We summon all those who would know the light, be the light, enter the light. Let them come to this altar, O God, where the flame of the Ark of the Covenant is ensconced in this crystal chalice. O lightning of the mind of God, lightning flash, penetrate through, realign. Let there be the God-centeredness that we have yearned for from the beginning. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother. Amen. Beloved Alpha and Omega, tend this altar of the Holy Child. Let the blue lightning of the mind of God shatter the cause and core of all abortion worldwide. Mighty I am presence, let the power of the great Mother Mary, the great Kuan Yin, now deal with this entire crisis as we give from our causal bodies, heart, head, and hand, our support of all children in the womb who must come forth to know their victorious day. O Jesus, we thank thee for thy sacred heart. O beloved Kuthumi, we thank thee for thy sacred heart. In the invincible word of the world teachers, we gather. Good afternoon, everyone. Won't you be seated at your pleasure? I rejoice to welcome you to the first Darshan session, the first of many, and an event that none of us will want to miss. The Darshan will be divided into a formal and an informal session, and each Darshan will have its very unique purpose and theme. So when I give the purpose and the theme in a formal way, I will be standing here, and as soon as I deliver this to you, then I will be seated. The subject of this Darshan is the sacred labor. It is the other half of the labor in which we have been laboring long, as we have gone through the process of re-energizing and structuring our community. That restructuring process, I want you to know, from the heart of the Mahachohan to my left, is an action of the Holy Spirit. We know that the Mahachohan is over the 7 Chohans of the rays, and so as you listen to my teaching on this sacred labor, make a mental note or write notes to yourself on the one ray of the 7 rays that is strongest and the one that is weakest, and let the strongest be the focal point for bringing up the weakest. In the Chila and the Path, El Morya defines the sacred labor as your high calling as a son or daughter of God. Let us accept immediately that we have a high calling. Even if our vessel of the high calling might be empty at this moment, let us each visualize, and you can even draw a picture of what your precious chalice looks like. So El Morya defines the sacred labor as your high calling. We could say our highest calling is our sacred labor. It involves the perfecting of the talents that God has placed within your soul. In 1984, Morya said, "The entire purpose of life is finding God." Finding God. Has your purpose been fuzzy? Have you not been able to define it? Here it is. The entire purpose of life is finding God. Finding God in all the nooks and crannies, in the mountains, in the forests, in the trees, in the oceans. Finding God in the heart and being willing to feel the pain of that love, so great a love in our hearts. Finding God in yourself and your talents and your calling and your sacred labor, and endowing anything that you do with His Spirit. I think that is something that we should take to extremes. Endowing anything that you do with His Spirit. The only way to know God's Holy Spirit, the great Elohim who framed the worlds from the beginning, is to enter the grasses, to enter the thunder and the lightning, to enter the pain, the glory. There is no ascension without pain. We should rejoice in it. We should be glad in it. We should transmute it. Lady Master Clara Louise Kinninger told us in her dictation at this conference that you must have a sacred labor if you are to achieve immortality. Your sacred labor is the work you do with your hands, your heart, your head, the Trinity of Morya's heart, head, and hand decree. If you do not have a sacred labor, you are missing the most important calling in life. The sacred labor is your entree into your spiritual universe. What is your spiritual universe? It is your Holy Christ self, waiting to receive you as bride. It is your causal body, your I am presence, one with it. Your sacred labor is the means to your ascension. But having a labor is not enough. You must have a sacred labor. And when you use the word sacred, whether you are a teacher in preschool, whether you are a scientist, whether you are an architect designing the future of this entire community, that sacredness, that very word, sacred, must every day and whenever you think of it, reignite the fire in your heart. That there is something alive and wondrous, and it is the sacredness that God is in me. With that, I can move to the stars. I can dance through the galaxies, because in my heart there is a sacredness. There is more than the mundane that in the end really provides no reason for being, unless it's human glory, wealth, materialistic things. How many people do you think pass from the screen of life and at the moment of death realizing that all that they worked for, they really never got what they really wanted? And what did they really want? No one ever told them. They wanted to have a part of God. They wanted to be a part of Him. They wanted Him to be part of themselves. So they went all over the world seeking this formula and that, seeking this prize, and so forth. Let none of us reach that moment of transition without having defined the sacred labor. The sacred labor is your reason for being. It's like your mission statement. If you would put a preamble to the mission statement, you would say, my mission is to embody the sacred labor. Then to define that sacred labor and to define how it will come into action every day of your life. The sacred labor has to meet certain standards. First of all, it must be practical. All of the ascended masters and every Chela I have ever known who is a true Chela is at first, last, foremost, practical. If we are not practical, The sense of sacredness is a blur. It's simply a blur. In the Keeper's Lesson 30, Morya teaches us, the ascension is a mathematical formula. If when you are weighed in the balance at the end of this incarnation, you are found wanting in the application of the sacred fire, 1, in dynamic decrees, and 2, in laying down your life for your friends, the law guarantees that you must return to physical embodiment to complete your assignment. Do not fear the sacred labor. The sacred labor will take you in byways and avenues and different octaves and different levels, but it is taking you there because God says, you have an incompleteness here. You have something to deal with there. So let your sacred labor be a transforming labor. Let our sacred labor contribute to our wholeness. No ascended master, neither association with our community, can offset or compensate for your absence of application of your own heart flame to the need of the hour, both spiritual and physical, practical and etheric. Your sacred labor is integral to balancing your threefold flame. A simple experiment with a child's top or a windmill will show you that if each part is not equal to the other, we will not manifest the wind, we will not have the balance that we need. Balancing your threefold flame is integral to your sacred labor. So if you fear to enter in to the monumental presence of one of the plumes of the threefold flame, conquer your fear, conquer your doubt. Let love take you where it would take you. If you enter the wisdom plume or the power plume, then enter it fully. Be prepared for heights of glory, depths of despair. But above all, do not fear to open yourself entirely and allow the masters who are our wondrous friends and gurus, such as Kuthumi and Morya, Saint Germain and Jesus, and so forth. Let us open ourselves. Let God do with us what He will. And let us experience a constantly transforming fire. We will go through the trial by fire, either voluntarily or by force. So let's make up our minds today that we will go into the trial by fire and not have to be dragged there by ascended masters who are telling us this is long overdue. As you know, you cannot make your ascension until you have balanced your threefold flame and fulfilled your divine plan. Your divine plan is part of your sacred labor and vice versa. I'm going to give you some notes Saint Germain dictated to me while I was recently editing one of his dictations from South America. He said, as the Buddha taught, the key to self-mastery is self-observation. And so it is with balancing your threefold flame. Your sensitivity to its plumes will enable you to determine when any of the three is out of balance. This is a very, very fine line. So you have to be very attuned to the heart to suddenly realize that maybe you're too young over here in the blue plume, or don't have enough fire in the yellow, and so forth. And so this can be a changing manifestation of movement in the heart flame as you go through your days, your nights, your journeys, your service. So you have to have a sensitivity to these three plumes, and this will enable you to determine when any of the three is out of balance. First, study the respective qualities of the threefold flame: the power, faith, and will of God in the blue, the wisdom, understanding, and enlightenment of God in the yellow, the love, compassion, kindness, and charity of God in the pink flame. Take note of which qualities are lacking in your everyday experience and which ones you are more comfortable expressing. Now, we see people in the world who grasp at these plumes, but don't have the comprehension of the sacredness of the plumes. Some may realize that the Atman dwells within them. Some may never know that the divine spark has been within them. You may feel that certain qualities are better suited to your persona and your psyche. But be careful not to fall into the habit of always favoring the plume that is strongest in you and thereby neglecting the development of the other two plumes. You can tell when your plumes are not balanced by how strongly you feel God's love or God's wisdom or God's power in your heart. If you do not feel the first, second, or third plumes of the Trinity pulsating in your heart, then you know that you must exercise the neglected attribute or attributes. Start by energizing the strongest plume of the three. Keep that plume strong so it can facilitate the strengthening of the two lesser plumes. For example, if your blue plume is your strongest plume, use it to shore up the yellow and the pink plumes. If you have a tendency to withhold love from your adult self or from your inner child or from others, go out and find those who need your love. You might feel awkward at first. Sometimes we are shy about giving our love to others, especially if we don't know each other that well. But in this company, we must all love one another with the love that Jesus loved his disciples. So we have to go out and find whose cup of love is empty, that we might fill it. Give cup upon cup of love's elixir to all who will receive your love. Stay with this assignment until you feel the strength of God's love in your heart, and you know that you have brought the pink plume to the level of the blue plume. Now you may sense that you are not exercising the wisdom God gave you by teaching the illiterate to read and write, for instance. If that's the case, you need to consume your self-centeredness and bring the sunbeams of God's wisdom to those who need them most. Your goal is to balance the threefold flame so that the love of your hearts is equal to the intelligence of your mind and to the determination of the will of God within. The very sacred labor itself is the means of balancing the threefold flame. Whatever your work and service is, it will involve inevitably some drudgery, some heights of excitement, of discovery, of being on the cutting edge of moving forward this community, or being a part of the tremendous manifestation of science that is in the world today, and so on and so forth. The means of balancing that threefold flame is that within the sacred labor itself, there is the Trinity, and the white sphere at the base is the fount of the Divine Mother rising from the base of the spine. So it is a fourfold activity. So getting back to the professor who is constantly into his books, into theoretical things, into not being into the practical world of people, their needs, what we can do for them, how we can care for them. When you get someone who just holds up in an ivory tower and says, well, I'm excellent at this, and I can earn my money in this, and I don't have to go out and discover all over again what are the balancing factors that I'm missing, because things are fine for me right now, so why should I change? Why should I upset the apple cart? But life in the ascension is more than this. We can be great authors, we can give great teachings, but if we don't live them, it is meaningless. So say whatever you are doing right now, what are you doing? What is your service? And then say to yourself, have I a balanced service because I extend love in meaningful ways, profoundly meaningful ways, carrying your brother or your sister, teaching, uplifting, realigning? There are all kinds of loving acts that can come through that plume and bring that up in your heart. So, the first requirement of the sacred labor is that it be practical. Another requirement of the sacred labor is that it must be performed to the glory of God. Who will tell us whether we are performing for the glory of God, or maybe 2 or 5 or 10% is doing it for the glory of the self? Our Holy Christ Self knows, our I Am Presence knows, and we can know if we want to know. If we don't want to know, and we want to get a little praise, a little bit of upliftment, not in the sense of the good sense of giving a reality check to people. I'm speaking of the sense of the glory of God. How can you perform a sacred labor to the glory of God if you do not know God or His glory? Mark used to call it the glow ray. Glory is the white fire of God. It is the halo of the saints. It is the aura of your 4 lower bodies. Serving to the glory of God, you enter in to the weaving of the seamless garment and the ascension flame. Whatever you do, if you don't do it to the glory of God, is not a sacred labor. How burdened we are when we realize this, and we realize the high percentage of mankind do things only for praise, for glory, and so forth, to be thought well of by men. This is not a time for that, because we all have karma. We need to see ourselves perhaps in the role of St. Francis, St. Clare, and the sense that poverty is a wondrous teacher, that creating a vacuum allows us to be filled. There is tremendous music of the spheres that brings us into alignment, music we may not even hear, but it is calling us back to the point of the Atman and to balance the threefold flame. Sometimes I think of people who put their names on monuments or library buildings or hospitals, and they do great service to the community. We see hospitals endowed by families generation after generation. All of this is a great service to humanity. It will accrue to good karma, to balancing karma, but it may not be sufficient to the sacredness of the labor. We cannot judge this, so we must be grateful and non-judgmental as to whether people do this for themselves to be seen well of men. Maybe they want their great-great-grandson to someday be able to say, "My great-grandfather built this," which is probably true, but one must give the glory to God. I happen to have been surrounded by people in my life, from neighbors to people I've met all over the world, who have the preponderance of weight in glory to themselves or in making money for the pleasures they will enjoy. Hard-working people, very hard-working people, honest, honorable, and so forth, devout, religious, but there is that sense of the necessity of praise from the human level. It is better to have a vacuum and one day to hear God say to you, "This is my beloved son, this is my beloved daughter, in whom I am well pleased." Let us wait for that statement, and when we hear the plaudits of the world, let us cast them into the sacred fire, so that the one voice we hear is that wondrous voice of God. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Jesus said, "I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works." If Jesus said that, and said that he does nothing of himself, can we do better? The understanding of the principle of dedicating one's life and service to the glory of God was revealed by God the Father to St. Catherine of Siena, as recorded in her great mystical treatise, the dialogue. In the dialogue, the Father explained to Catherine that the root of discretion is a real knowledge of self and of my goodness, by which the soul immediately and discreetly renders to each one his due. Chiefly to me she should render praise and glory to my name, and refer to me the graces and the gifts which she sees and knows she has from me. To herself the soul renders that which she sees herself to have merited, knowing that she does not even exist of herself, and attributing to me her being and every other grace which she has received from me. The tree of love feeds itself on humility, bringing forth from its side the offshoot of true discretion. This tree then, so sweetly planted, produces fragrant blossoms of virtue, with many scents of great variety, inasmuch as the soul renders fruit of grace and of utility to her neighbor, according to the zeal of those who come to receive fruit from my servants. And to me she renders the sweet odor of glory and praise to my name, and so fulfills the object of her creation. These are the words of Jesus given to Catherine, written down by her scribes. Her biographer, Igino Giordani, records that on one occasion while Catherine was praying, Jesus Christ appeared to her and asked, "Do you know, daughter, who you are and who I am? If you knew these two things, you would be blessed. You are that which is not. I am he who is. If you have this knowledge in your soul, the enemy can never deceive you." Again, you are that which is not. I am he who is. That's the mantra I want you to take with you at the conclusion of this session. Jesus says to Catherine, you are that which is not, meaning Catherine must sustain herself as an empty vessel. She needs to be the negative, that which is not, so that the empty vessel might be filled with the one, her Lord, who is saying, I am he who is. You are that which is not. That's the negative polarity that we have in matter. I am he who is. If you have this knowledge in your soul, the enemy can never deceive you. You will escape all his snares. You will never consent to anything contrary to my commandments. And without difficulty, you will acquire every grace, every truth, every light. Note that Jesus told Catherine, without difficulty, you will acquire every grace, every truth, every light. With that lesson, Catherine became fundamentally learned. She was founded upon a rock. There were no more shadows. I nothing, God all. I non-being, God being. That is the other part of the mantra. I nothing, God all. I non-being, God being. I the all, thou the nothing. If we are nothing, we are void. We have chosen to empty ourselves so the Lord Christ can enter into us. So on the plus side, the sacred labor gives us the opportunity to build. On the minus side, the sacred labor creates the vacuum. If you read the work of Catherine of Siena and you read the dialogue of Catherine written down by her secretaries, you will find the most profound mystical union with God. It is truly profound. When I have read those dialogues, they are so complex and so erudite as Jesus talking to Catherine, that you can hardly believe that Jesus has so many things to tell us. And so he goes to his saints, he goes to those whose ears are inclined to him, and he gives us these beautiful passages. And then he gives other passages that make us ponder and ponder and ponder again. Another requirement of the sacred labor is that it be rooted in all 4 pillars of the path of the ruby ray: sacrifice, surrender, selflessness, and service. You can tell if you have not fully submitted to those 4 S's, if you are still looking for outer approval, the approval of the world, your family, your peers. None of that is really important. It's the sacred labor of heart, head, and hand that will change the world, no matter who is the instrument. What's important is having the approval of the ascended masters, the archangels. Doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do a good job and earn the compliments of others, but you have to know inside of yourself that all the kudos of the world cannot add up to the sacred labor. Saint Teresa of Avila, who was an embodiment of Florence Miller, explained how important sacrifice, surrender, selflessness, and service are in the sacred labor. Teresa of Avila was embodied in our community. She is now the Ascended Lady Master Christine. She wrote in her meditations on the Song of Songs, in the active and seemingly exterior, the soul is working interiorly. And when the active works rise from this interior root, the root of the soul, the root of the base of the spine, the root of the solar plexus, when the active works rise from this interior root, they become lovely and very fragrant flowers, for they proceed from this tree of God's love and are done for him alone without any self-interest. The fragrance from these flowers spreads to the benefit of many. It is a fragrance that lasts, not passing quickly, but having great effect. I want to explain myself further, she said, so that you can understand. Someone preaches a sermon with the intention of benefiting souls, but he is not so detached from human considerations that he doesn't make some attempt to please or to gain honor or credit. Or he has his mind set on receiving some canonry, some financial endowment for having preached well. There are also other things people do for their neighbor's benefit, many things, and with a good intention, but with much care not to lose anything through them and not to displease. These fear persecution. They want to be pleasing to kings, lords, and the people. On the other hand, other souls look only at serving and pleasing the Lord. And because they know the love the Lord has for his servants, they like to leave aside their own satisfaction and good so as to please him and serve and tell souls beneficial truths by the best means they can. Nor do they, as I say, think about whether or not they will themselves lose. They keep before their minds the benefit of their neighbor, nothing else. So as to please God more, they forget themselves for their neighbor's sake, and they lose their lives in the challenge, as did many martyrs. They are not aware of the words they say while enveloped in so sublime a love of God, in their inebriation from that heavenly wine. And if they are aware, they don't care if they displease men. These souls do much good. End of quote by Teresa of Avila. Helen Roerich also writes about the necessity of selflessness in this sacred labor. She says, "Many miracles are around us. We must only notice them. Wonderful is the life of a disciple, but it is not so easy, for he carries a tremendous responsibility. And there are so many difficulties, especially in the days of Armageddon, when all the dark forces try to attack him. But with the development of consciousness, these very difficulties become joyous, because the heart is so full of devotion to the teacher and wants to prove in reality this devotion by overcoming all the difficulties. Self-sacrifice becomes so natural, so full of joy. The whole spirit is already separated from earthly things and realizes where its true home is. The only thing left is an ardent desire to fulfill the mission as well as possible, to justify the confidence of the teacher without any care for the results. They say in the East we must work without thinking of results. I understand it this way. We must learn to do our work as well as we can because of love and not for the reward. Only then will our work be beautiful. The key to all achievements is in such selfless love for every work we undertake. Mother Teresa of Calcutta has defined service as love in action. She says true love is a giving until it hurts. A giving until it hurts. It's a very interesting thing, this concept of giving until it hurts. What is hurting? It is the pain of so much love, in my understanding. Giving until it hurts is that pain of such stupendous love that we can hardly contain it. It is not how much we give, but how much love we put into the giving. Another requirement for your sacred labor is that it must be your own sacred labor, not another's. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna counsels the warrior Arjuna that he must engage in the battle, even if he will fight his own kinsman, because it is his dharma, his duty, or reason for being. Krishna says, "No man attains freedom from the bondage of action simply by not undertaking actions. Nor by mere renunciation does one attain perfection, for no one can remain absolutely inactive even for a moment. Everyone is made to engage in action, however unwillingly. Do your allotted action, for action is superior to inaction. Even the maintenance of your body cannot be accomplished without action. Therefore, perform the action that has to be done, continually free from attachment." If we are free from attachment, there is almost nothing that we would not do for our Guru. As soon as we become attached, we say, "I'm too tired, I won't do this, it's not important, it doesn't matter, I'll do other good deeds tomorrow." So it's a continual freedom from attachment. If we are attached to the world, we can't ascend. We'd have to pull up the whole planet into the octave of light if we're so attached to the planet. So we have to let go of the planet when it's time to let go. For by performing action without attachment, a man reaches the supreme. One's own dharma, even when not done perfectly, is better than someone else's dharma, even though well performed. This is a very interesting thing because many people take jobs in the world for the benefits, for the salary, for what's in it for them, even though they have a greater sacred labor. They set the sacred labor aside because they can make the same salary with far less effort. So why go into a sacred labor when you can take home a large paycheck, be satisfied, go through life, have good times, etc., doing someone else's labor. Someone else's labor that is easier than yours. Another translator translates this, "Do thy duty, even if it be humble, rather than another's, even if it be great. To die in one's duty is life. To live in another's is death." What is your greatest talent right now? And how can you embellish it, perfect it, refine it? Will you study? Will you improve? Will you burn the midnight oil, studying books about what you are into in your department, in your service. Be certain that you don't take the broad way that leads to destruction, the easy way. You have a sacred labor, and it's one sacred labor. It may encompass many jobs, many commitments, many things you do in life, but you have to center on the one sacred labor that you came into embodiment to perfect. It is your highest calling. It should be your greatest challenge. It should be your most wondrous joy. You should wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock and say, I can't wait to get to my computer. I can't wait to get to my machinery. I can't wait to do this job, because this is my sacred labor. This is my own. I know I have to do this. For my fellow Chelas, for the Ascended Masters, they need me in this position, even though I could slough off. Take it easy. Take an easier job. Not worry about it. The sacred labor has in it the fiery intensity to carry you like a rocket to the plane of your I Am presence and to the moment of your ascension. Fulfill it well. Think about what was the labor of Jesus Christ. What did he come to do from the beginning and to the end? What did he show us? He showed us that we have a tremendous alchemy. And if we work with that alchemy, we can do the works he did and greater works. Every great light that you know is an ascended master has fulfilled a sacred labor and often kept that labor lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So don't shirk your sacred labor. It's like you put yourself out of touch in the kingdom. El Morya sums it up in Leaves of Morya's Garden, Book 2, when he says, of course one's own canoe, though full of holes, is better than another's ship. We value sailing only in one's own boat. Did you see him wink? Through performing your sacred labor, you become sanctified. There is no sanctification without a sacred labor. Are you sanctified holy? Are you made holy? Yes, if you are worthy in your high calling of a sacred labor. Having the sense of that high calling and that it is unique to you and no one else in the cosmos can perform that sacred calling, that should give you a sense of true importance in God, not importance to man. But God gave me this assignment. He trained me for this. He loved me so much that he put me in this position so that I could have my victory. Suddenly you stand up tall, you say, why, God needs me, and I love this work, and I'm going to use my ingenuity to perfect it, to excel it, to go beyond it, to keep on improving so that I can bring this tremendous labor to others. Your sacred labor is holy. Your sacred labor is one of the foundations of the community of the Holy Spirit. Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul, the mansions of the sacred labor. Buddhism teaches that the spiritual path is founded on the 3 jewels, which are acknowledged by the disciple when he makes the vows called taking refuge. I take refuge in the Buddha. This is a point of humility, acknowledging that we need to take refuge. We cannot simply be naked against the ice and the cold and say, I do not need the Buddha, I don't need the Dharma, I don't need the Sangha, I don't need the Guru. I have figured out a way to get there myself. Morya always says there are many who don't make it when they travel alone. So taking refuge, this is an acknowledgement that we have need, but also the Buddha has need. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, which is the path, the way, the teaching. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community. And in Tibetan Buddhism, there is a 4th refuge. I take refuge in the Guru. Each one's sacred labor is the very fabric of our spiritual community, the Sangha. In 1974, the great divine director said, "The sacred labor is the ritual of each life stream by gift, by grace, by talent bestowed from the heart of God. Each member of the community is able to pursue the ritual of life, of self-mastery, of mastery of time and space, all the while cooperating with and supporting the sacred labor of each one. And each one's labor, each one's meditation upon service as a holy thing, a holy act, comprises a thread of gold. And thus the fabric of community is woven as one garment, as the seamless garment of the Lord's body and of the mandala that all members of the spiritual community focus through their individual heart flames." As I read these words, "the fabric of community is woven as one garment," I could see this very, very huge blanket, piece of cloth, embroidered exquisitely and carefully by each of our chelas at inner levels. It spans far beyond the length and breadth of this court. It just keeps on going. And all those who are a part of the Sangha, the Buddha, and so forth, are a part of that weaving. It is through ritual as the sacred labor that mankind will fulfill the epitome of a New Age civilization and of a transition from the old order to the new. So if you are at Maitreya's mystery school for some other reason than engaging in the sacred labor, then you are here for the wrong reasons. If you always wanted to be a first-class motion picture producer, it's all for naught unless it's to the glory of God. You are wasting your time, and time and space are all we have. If we don't see time and space as the precious vessels through which we manifest our sacred labor, then we are really nobody in particular. And no archangel is going to bat for us. No ascended master is going to say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord." If you don't fulfill your sacred labor, you will never hear the words God spake to Jesus, "This is my beloved Son, my beloved daughter, in whom I am well pleased." So the Alpha and the Omega of the sacred labor is the self-emptying constantly in order to be filled with Christ and his presence. That is what we want to take away with today in this, our formal opening to Darshan. Now you might like to stretch, move about briefly. We're going to put my chair down in front so that we can talk about things that are on your hearts. If you would like to ask a question or make a statement, please go to the podium. We will be videoing these sessions so that you can replay them, and certain ones I will authorize to go to the field.
Mother, you mentioned the greatest of these is love, and Paul talked about faith, hope, and charity, and the greatest of these is charity or love. Could you talk about this in relation to a balanced threefold flame?
If I were to take my threefold flame, I would take the fire of love in my heart and fan the blue plume to be certain that my admixture contained just the right amount of love, that in delivering the call to arms, in the battle cry, and in keeping things moving, that we don't go into the stages of famous people like Genghis Khan, etc., who carried a youngness to a level of absolute destruction. So the quality of charity as love is necessary to each of the three plumes, but love alone cannot stand without wisdom, and so forth. So when we are engaged in giving of ourselves as charity, and in love and in selflessness, we go to the yellow plume to be certain that our method is true, that our plans have practicality, that we are going to succeed with this fire of love because we have put study and concentration and our talents to know that the love that we then release will be effective. So we have to see to that our exercise of each plume is effective. Effectiveness. How effective were you today in your job when you go to sleep at night? How effective was I? Did I make my point? Did I make things happen? Did I do it right? Those are the moments of self-assessment. When we think through our day quickly, we kneel at our bedside, we have our master's pictures before us, we commune with them, maybe we write them a very brief note to which they always answer in some way. We have to know that the exercise of the threefold flame is effective, practical, that it will work for us, work change, work the alchemy of Saint Germain.
Could you also talk about pain becoming bliss, the pain of love?
Well, all of us who are mothers know the story, and all of us who are fathers have had that sense of almost painful helplessness in watching the procedure. It is a glorious pain. It is a tremendously glorious pain, and when we realize that pain is a means of self-transcendence, and pain is a means of giving our all. Pain then, once we allow it to happen, gives us the quality and the ability of self-transcendence. If we've had a number of babies and we've done them by natural birth, some births are easier than others. So some jobs and things we're called upon to do. There are different weights and levels. Pain is a part of the human dilemma because we put out pain. We send pain out just as we send out our karma. And because we're not karma-free beings, we are causing pain to our planet and our universe because we're not in a situation of perfect bliss. Pain is a real tester. Some people are frightened to death of pain. Others are ready to be chastened by the trial by fire. I think measuring pain is almost measuring courage and almost saying to the Holy Spirit, I want to go through this because I know millions of people are burdened today. I want to share their pain. I want to use the violet flame to ease their burden. We have to deal with pain. If we don't, we probably miss the most important alchemy of our lives. How we know one another so much better when we share another's pain, one's grief. We don't have too many such moments because we aren't intimate with that many people. A father, a mother, siblings, grandparents. We can deal with most of that. The pain of the loss of a child must be, for all parents, the most ultimate pain. Pain is our teacher with a capital P. Let's embrace it and get through it.
Mother, in the most recent dictation by the great divine director, he spoke of transcending the consciousness of duality. I was trying to come to grips with this and just thinking that it seems that much of our decree work deals with ourselves and the forces of evil, and both in the macrocosm and the microcosm. And I was just wondering, is it possible to decree in a plane of mind that is transcending the dual view? And if so, how would this be accomplished?
I think it's what we do. I think we're already doing it.
Okay.
The telling is the auras of our staff. You may not see your auras, but I see them. And untold numbers of you have great light in your auras, and you're not in duality, but you recognize you haven't balanced 100% of your karma, so you keep going after the untransmuted part. But there's a glorious presence of the transmuted part. There's a glory of your path and your calling that is very visible, and it becomes more visible all the time and more beautiful as we look through the field and we see our keepers who come here, or we go stumping and we find wondrous souls. The most humble beings do not realize how much grace and light they have. So we're out for the 100% commitment, but I wanted to tell you something about a situation that is apropos that happened in my extended family in Switzerland a number of years ago. So it came to pass a number of years ago that an aunt who was Italian, who was married to my uncle, passed on. And I remember this aunt very well. She was hardly literate. She ran a boarding house after her husband died. Any beggar that would come to the door, she would bring him in, feed him, give him a night's rest. She never said no to anyone. You would think that that would be the profile of someone who just couldn't say no. But this person was living the teachings, the true teachings of Jesus Christ. So I remembered her well. I remembered her two sons, one of whom is a teacher in a university in Quebec. And so my relatives who heard of her passing wanted to know what level. What level was she in the 33 levels? And I think it was either the 9th or the 11th level. And this woman never had the teachings. She never had the teachings. So that is the definition of sainthood. And it just taught me a great lesson. To welcome everyone, to give away all that one has, and to nurture people. So that's how you get out of duality and into the unity of being in God.
Thank you.
All of the relatives of this woman were absolutely astounded because in their eyes, she was the lowliest of all of them. It's the truth. It's just a most amazing story.
Hello, Mother. I was reading the book The Path, and to try and find out what my mission is, where I should be in the community. And one of the exercises in there is to look at what your desires were for what you wanted to do when you were a child, what your passion was, and to kind of tune into what your desires are. And I'm wondering how much of a part of the process of finding your divine plan and your mission this should be, and how reliable a guide this is as to what it should be.
First of all, what is the book, The Path?
The one you were teaching on at some university.
Okay. Now I know what the path you're talking about. So now you're talking about how much should we rely on our childhood directions?
The passions and desires we had in childhood, and what our desire is, versus I'm wondering how much of a part of the process this is.
I think there are elements in our inner child that define the wisdom of the inner child, that define the maturity of that child, and even the becoming wholeness of that child. It's almost like relying on dreams. You can't just go back to your inner child and say, okay, the inner child is telling me what to do, because You are the parent of the child. So you may take strands and threads of teachings. But I have always come to the conclusion in a sacred labor, the ascended masters need me. Where do they need me most? Which master needs me most? Let me serve him. I mean, that's really all I do. That's all you have to do. And you will receive a message in return.
Thank you.
I'm a mother, and I have 2 little boys, William and Frederick. And I'm a dedicated mother, and I'm a dedicated worker. I see my motherhood as a sacred labor, and I see my work with the school as a sacred labor also. You're a mother with 5 children. You're a messenger. You do the work of 10 men or more. And I'd like to know how you define sacred, that sacred labor. As a mix without compromising your family and compromising yourself. Is it possible, or I'm at a point where I don't know if I should choose one. I can't drop my children, of course, but I'm wondering if if I do choose my work, does that mean that I'm compromising my family? Is there a way to make it work?
I believe that motherhood is a sacred labor. I believe that if I had only been a mother in my life and not done what I have to do, I would have compromised the brotherhood, yourselves, myself. This is not without great pain on my part. It is a great pain to tear oneself from one's children because one has responsibilities. I'm of the opinion that all of our souls would rather have been born and not seen as much of our mothers as we might have liked to, but that we got into embodiment. And in the final analysis, I think my children and grandchildren would agree. But it's not the best of all possible worlds, and yet I've seen the most perfect families where the mother has been at home the entire time from the child's birth to their entering college. And these children have psychological problems. They have their karma. They bring it with them. You can have a perfect and ideal environment and still not have the victory of the situation. We are all concerned about this issue. So we're here to try to make it work in the best possible way. And the best thing to do, I think, is to call to Mother Mary for the solution and not fret and worry about it.
Thank you.
Hi. First and foremost, I'd like to really say thank you for allowing me to become a part of this community. I'm really happy to be here. And I don't actually get to see you very often. I mean, not like this.
I saw you at the ranch kitchen.
Well, now I could sit down and share a cup of bancha tea and talk to you over things, but...
that's what we're doing right now.
Exactly. That's why I'm up here. So I guess my question is, and with all these ascended masters around us, and somehow you feel closer to some than others, and you're working on establishing these relationships, in my heart, I would like to be your friend, and I would like to establish a tie to your heart and have that guru-chela relationship. And I guess what I'm asking you is how do I go about doing that when, you know, I see you up there and I'm always down here, and
you just have to sprout some wings, right?
I mean, I would really like to be close with you, and I'm wondering how I go about doing that.
Well, we'll have to figure that out. This is the first step. We're all here together right now. Secondly, by far and away, you should choose as your guru Morya. Since I'm his chela, that puts you right in the lineage that you want to be in. Morya is a great teacher, a great taskmaster. He has the most magnanimous heart you could ever imagine. And I think depending on how we were brought up and how we related to our fathers is often how we relate to the Ascended Master El Morya. And we should all get through that, because when we move with him and serve him, he truly becomes our Father. And he is so tender and so kind and so healing. It's just a cherishment to be in the same universe that El Morya is in. That's all I have to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is this the time for goodbye, goodbye? Auf Wiedersehen, saying goodbye. I think it is. It's been wonderful communing with you today. It's very lovely to see your hearts opened, and that we have this moment where we could just be ourselves and contemplate the Ascended Masters and how very close they are to us. I find that when I write a letter at night to a master or several, and I burn it, the answer is waiting for me in the morning. You really need to get in the habit of this communication. It's really wonderful. So let us seal this Darshan. Beloved and mighty iron presence, open our hearts. Open our hearts, let the floodgates open. Let us give ourselves to the world. Let us give ourselves to the Ascended Masters. Let us know that as we give, we are replenished 1,000-fold. Let us be empty that we might be filled. And let us consider that calling. Thou the all, I the nothing, so that God once again can fill us with his joy. O hierarchy of Sama Kumara, thank you for tearing with planet Earth. We could have left a long time ago. We call for the wiping out of war, the engines of war, and evil on Earth, and we call for cosmic reinforcements to that end. I call for the Holy Christ Self of each one, to center each one in the sacred labor that brings joy, commitment, and sacrifice. Let the power of constancy become our own, that we might give with constancy to the Ascended Masters. Almighty God, turn back the darkness of this entire world. Begone this force of darkness as the tide goes out into the seas. Let the white fire of God replace that darkness as we have given our calls to mighty Cosmos, the great divine director of the ascended hosts. Almighty God, banish the darkness this day. Let it be done according to thy will. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the divine Mother. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The preceding lecture was given by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and spiritual teacher. This is a presentation of the Summit Lighthouse, an international spiritual organization dedicated to universal enlightenment. Founded in 1958, the Summit Lighthouse is a beacon of truth to thousands worldwide and a leader in New Thought spirituality. This program is brought to you by the Summit Lighthouse. For more information, call 1-800-245-5445 or visit our website at www.summitlighthouse.org. Outside the USA, call 406-848-9500 or write to the Summit Lighthouse, 63 Summit Way, Gardner, Montana, 59030, USA.